The Shade Riders and the Dreadful Ghosts. Book number 1. The Library, Chapter 2. They entered the library and closed the door. Nova put her ear to the floor and heard footsteps fading into the distance. What a relief. Nova looked around the stuffed, musty-smelling room. The librarian, Mrs. Monroe, had to be here, because otherwise the place would have been locked. Other than that, it looked like they had the entire place to themselves. The girls put their return library books into the drop-off box, and then Nova crept past the shelves full of mouse-chewed books into the open area with tables, and Takeesha followed. Hey, Takeesha, I can't wait to see the foal today. Hopefully it'll be white, like its father. Oh, I know. Nova grabbed her arm. Hurry, we don't have much time. Nova hesitated and frowned at the cold spring rain still coming down in torrents against the brown-tinted windows. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled as horses and buggies rolled past on the street. Nova could make out the muffled sound of hooves thumping the pavement and thought she heard a whinny in the distance. Short bushes grew under the windows, and she could see the Bardsville Harbor with its red lighthouse standing like a sentinel in the distance. Lake Michigan did not have many boats at the piers. Most had been moved to storage for the winter and part of the spring, and still hadn't made it out onto the water. Nova saw the colors, but with so much rain she didn't see much more. A large oak tree stood outside to the left. A brave soaked squirrel jumped down and scampered around the short grassy school grounds. She realized it had been a long time since she had seen an actual car on the roads. No one was interested in being a car mechanic or anything else that needed computer skills. Business was being sent overseas. People were not willing to finish high schools. Why should they bother? Some jobs could be acquired by being an apprentice, but most jobs were out in the fields, and a person didn't need an education to pick vegetables or milk a cow. No wonder they had the library to themselves. Nova turned from the window. She might as well get this meeting started and see if anything, just anything at all, would come of it. After all, millions of people who believe in magic can't be wrong, can they? Takeesha, first off, do your African shaman rain dance backwards to stop this stupid rain. Okay, you be the drums. Nova began a slow, soul-grounding beat like Takeesha had shown her. Takeesha hummed and swayed to the beat of Nova's hands on the wooden wobbly table. Nova picked up the beat and began to chant, something that was roughly Native American. Her mother told her she was half Sioux. At least that's what Nova's dad, her mom's boyfriend, had told her mom before he had died of cancer. They both sang over the rushing sound of the fast rain. Then Takeesha elbowed her hard and sharp in the back. Nova stopped chanting, and her legs danced about as she hunched over the tabletop. Too bad she had to stay at the drum, or she'd show Takeesha she could really dance her butt off. Nova watched Takeesha move, shaking her taller, streamlined body in an effort to harness the paranormal. Takeesha's sandals flip-flopped in the air as she moved. Nothing happened. After 3 minutes, they stopped and panted. Takeesha made fists and stamped her foot at the continuing rain. I don't understand it. My shaman book said this works every time. Takeesha scratched her head between her tight cornrows. You ruined it by adding your song, you know what I mean? No, in this experiment the magic should have been more powerful. Takeesha tossed her head, her nose flaring. Nova realized her friend took the unsuccessful dance very personally. She couldn't even meet Takeesha's eyes when she was like this. Nova looked away and noticed Mrs. Monroe come out of the back storage area. She grabbed the giant cardboard Easter bunny left over from spring break and carried it into the back. Nova looked out of the corner of her eye at Takeesha and felt better because her friend was smiling at a book she had pulled off the shelf nearby. Nova shuffled over to another aisle and searched the shelves. She found what she was looking for, took the book out of hiding and shook off the mouse droppings and rubbed the book off on her jeans. Takeesha, here's a book you'd like. I put it in the science section so no one would check it out. You get first dibs. Sewing for money? Say, I like the looks of this. Thank you. She hugged the book. Hey, Takeesha, I haven't seen you wear that patterned outfit you worked so hard on, the one from the African Heritage Days. Oh, girl, I'm just waiting for the right time, you know what I mean? Suddenly, Nova jumped in excitement. Quick, let's do the seance. They grabbed a corner table near the windows. From her hip pack, Nova dumped out 16 dice from the game Boggle. The dice had a letter on each side. I think we can roll these and get messages from beyond the grave. Also from the hip pack, Nova pulled out a pink crystal heart. This pendulum can be used to ask spirit questions. When it swings north and south, it's a yes. West and east, it's a no. And a circle is a maybe. Nova brought out a handful of strong-smelling sage, eucalyptus, and wormwood. Takeesha wrinkled her nose. These smells will get us in the spiritual mood, Nova said, smiling. Let's close the curtains, Takeesha said, pointing to the windows. Nova and Takeesha raced to close the curtains and darken the corner. They shuffled back to the table. Takeesha brought out from her fanny pack 3 battery-powered tea lights and turned them on. They flickered like real flames. Their faces pulsed in the lights as Nova crushed the herbs together with her fingers and waved them about. Takeesha placed the Ouija board in front of them on the table, and they put their hands on the planchette. Again, Nova glanced at the rain against the window to her right, missing a dark shade. The rain sluiced down, cascading over the ledge in the center, creating a sheet of water. Nova thought she saw a man with a cropped white hair, white beard, and a mustache, moving his hands as he rotated them over a basin. Unruly, colorful geometrical shapes in 3D rose up from his hands. Nova thought they might be what Benny called fractals. Holy chaos! Nova blinked her eyes, and then he was gone. In the library, the planchette moved over the letters on the Ouija board, even without questions being posed. It spelled out Nova. Suddenly, the planchette began to speed all over the board. The girls couldn't keep up with it. Something just grabbed my hand, and I can't lift my other hand, Nova said, breaking out in a sweat. Let go! I can't, Takeesha yelled back. Holy chaos, it won't let my hand go, Takeesha. I need your help. I can't move my left hand, Takeesha bit her lower lip as she struggled to pull away from the planchette. What do you want from us? Takeesha screamed at the board. Then the mysterious presence abruptly released Nova from the planchette and forced her from the chair. Gah! She was pulled and pushed to the aisle of books. Finally loose, Takeesha ran after her. Takeesha, help me. It's hurting my wrist. Nova couldn't see or smell anything unusual, but she did feel a shiver up her spine. What had she gotten herself into? Holy chaos. Her hands searched the bookshelves as if it could read by itself. Finally, it reached out for a chewed-up book. She heard a loud click inside of her head. What was that? She tried to pull her hand back, but it was as though the book had a vacuum attached. She removed the book from the dirty shelf. Takeesha soon caught up with her. What's happening? I don't want this stupid book. Nova was going to fling it down, but her hand still clung to it. Hang on, Takeesha said. We wanted the ghosts to talk to us. Maybe they are. What is that book? Nova began to calm down a little, mostly because she seemed to be regaining the use of her hand. She looked at the title, The Legends of Gods Around the World. Then she tried to open it. She couldn't. The pages were all stuck together. Nova caught her breath. Maybe the entity didn't want her to read what was inside. The title was enough. But what did it mean? Suddenly, Nova danced in a circle, then raced across the room. Frickin'! She almost ran over Takeesha. Something's got a hold of my arm again. Nova had squealed before she disappeared down another dark aisle. Takeesha ran after her. There's no running in this here library, young ladies, Mrs. Monroe said. Nova noticed the librarian's eyes were glassed over. Mrs. Monroe suddenly remembered something. She put her finger in the air and said, That is what I need, and that is what I shall have. She turned around to go back into the back room. Meanwhile, Nova was searching for another volume. She scanned the titles on the shelves to figure out which section she was in. Okay, she said, you want me to read anthropology, the study of people? No. Archaeology, the study of ancient cultures? No. The Mayan people? No. Her hand came to another book. Oh, of course, Neanderthals. And another click. The book, all chewed up and dusty, came off the shelf and hovered in front of her face, without the help of her hand this time. Holy chaos, Takeesha said. Why not? Nova said. Go ahead and give it to me. The book lay down on the pile in her arms. Then the Herculean force that pulled her around the library suddenly let her go. Nova groaned and dropped to the floor like a rag doll. The book about Neanderthals flopped open to page 236 in her lap. What happened to me? Was that a ghost? Nova asked. Takeesha shrugged. Nova looked at the book in her lap and began to read aloud. The Neanderthals were able to survive in colder temperatures because of their different physical features. They were short, about 4 to 5 feet tall, and much hairier than modern man. They also had a sloping head, making it appear they had no forehead. The Neanderthals didn't have much of a chin and had big noses. What are you doing? You said yourself that whatever might be trying to tell us something, I'm trying to figure out what. Their hair was like human hair with many shades of color. Their freckles were a different kind than that of modern human. Nova looked at the artist's rendition of cavemen and women. They sure did look different, but also a little familiar. Scientists believe they buried their dead but had no evidence of a formal religion that they could discern. Some scientists think they died off from disease or malnutrition. Other scientists said they died off because there was no more trees or caves. Wow, this must be an old book. Even she knew the Neanderthals were overrun by the modern human people. Nova looked at Takeesha to see if she had an idea. Takeesha shrugged. Nova rubbed her cheekbones and brow ridge. No wonder they looked familiar. Do you think I look like a Neanderthal? Let me see. Takeesha grabbed the book and looked closer at the pictures, then gazed at Nova. I don't know, maybe. What would you do if I said yes? I guess I might be sad, and maybe I might be relieved, because that would explain a lot about... Oh, what do you think happened to us? I don't know about you, Takeesha, but I'm calling that encounter a visit by a ghost. Are you two ready to check out? Mrs. Monroe said. That was the final bell. Nova closed the book, got up with her load, and helped Takeesha pick up their things at the table, stuffing various items into their hip packs. Hey, Takeesha, wasn't that weird that Mrs. Monroe didn't say anything about the ghosts? They started to shuffle to the counter. Do you think it would bother her? I don't know. We should probably tell Mrs. Monroe about our library being haunted now. Well, if it is, it's our fault, you know. Then Mrs. Monroe stopped what she was doing, blinked rapidly, yawned, and seemed to notice the young women. She pushed round glasses up her shiny pointed nose. Nova put her books down on the counter, creating a dust cloud. As they stood at the checkout, Takeesha turned to Nova. I was thinking. You can do that? Nova said, and then laughed. Oh, that's not very nice, Nova, Mrs. Monroe said. Sorry. Nova's face turned red. Takeesha grabbed Nova by the arm. You've got to stop with that joke. It was only funny the first time. You know what I mean? Oh, all right, I guess, she mumbled. And you've also got to stop running in the library, Mrs. Monroe said. But I was pulled all over the library by a ghost. It took me to these books. Do they mean anything to you? And one of your books is glued together or something. Oh, really? Mrs. Monroe looked at Nova and Takeesha. There's still no running in the library. Nova gasped. But my hand was grabbed by a ghost and I couldn't get away from it. Maybe I should tell the school principal, Mrs. Monroe thought she was lying. Do you believe in ghosts? Nova asked. Doesn't everybody? Mrs. Monroe had her face close to Nova's. However, ghosts can't pull you around. They have no substance to grab with. Nova looked at Takeesha, who shrugged. What do you think of these books? Nova asked. They don't seem to have any significance. Mrs. Monroe picked up the stuck-together book and examined it. It looks a little water-damaged, but it's okie dokie. Do you still want it? She opened it to a page of a flying horse named Pegasus. Oh, definitely. Nova and Takeesha handed over the hall passes and the temporary library cards to Mrs. Monroe. She smiled pleasantly as she checked out Takeesha's books. Mrs. Monroe flipped through a drawer of 3x5-inch cards. Nova and Nowak, you have a $10 fine for a late book. Oh, okay. Nova swallowed and dug in her pockets. Say, when did this library lose the beat-up old computer this place used to have? Takeesha said. Last week it died and we couldn't find anyone who would repair it, so we recycled it, and then we couldn't find anyone to sell us a used one or a new one, Mrs. Monroe said. Fortunately, I've been moving to cards for some time. Never really trusted to kept current with the thing. Wow, I thought technology was a good thing, Nova said. If it weren't for President Hayden Radford and Reverend Corbin Heller, we couldn't go back to the basics of life, Mrs. Monroe said. Computers and other technology are bad for the United States. That's not true, Nova said. I want to live in the past. Just think of all the electronic toys. Technology was getting too advanced. Some people were getting so technically illiterate they couldn't figure out how to work the different gadgets. It was time for a change. Mrs. Childress, the English teacher, cleared her throat to announce her presence. Nova noticed she hesitated at the door, then strolled toward the librarian, slamming some books on the counter. Carol, she said, that attitude is precisely why we're not able to compete in the world and make scientific discoveries. Noreen, have you ever noticed that scientists make so many mistakes with their data? It's no wonder no one trusts their discoveries. Mrs. Monroe took the books and put them in an old dented metal cart. The old folk cures and remedies have stood the test of time and still work. Don't be ridiculous. We need to change to fit the times. When our knowledge grows, the information changes and we advance out of primitive times. I'll accept primitive times because it must be a divine plan. Things happen for a reason. Mrs. Childress rolled her eyes and turned to the girls. Nova and Takeesha, how are you? Hi, Mrs. Childress, Nova said. We communicated with a ghost in the library. And Takeesha nodded. Did it bother you? Mrs. Childress said. Were you doing anything with science? No, we just wanted to talk to it, Takeesha said, grinning. Well, I'm glad you're not hurt. I don't think you know what you're dealing with. That student Dayton, who was chased by a pirate ghost, had died before he made it to the hospital. Mrs. Childress stomped out of the door. Please be careful. Nova felt her heart speed up. Wow. Poor family, Mrs. Monroe said. Dayton had a heart condition on top of it. Oh, that's not so good, Nova said. But in a way, she was relieved. Most likely, the ghost didn't cause the death. She still wanted to contact the ghost from the library again, though. They were silent for a time. Nova found herself picking at a worn corner of a book on the counter and yanked her hand away. Why did they get rid of the science classes Mrs. Childress used to teach? Nova said. English is more important. Yeah, whatever. Nova hugged her books and started for the door. Come on, Takeesha, let's go. You can't have your books until you pay your $10 fine. Nova hesitated, then said, You're in luck. I happen to have one last $50 bill left over. Nova squirmed as she handed her money. It was all she had left from her summer job. Mrs. Monroe gave Nova the change. She shoved the bills back into her jeans. The two friends headed out of the library and into the din of loud talking, slamming locker doors, and shuffling of feet.